That's a yes. All right. Well, good morning, everyone. And I'm here this morning to discuss the very real costs of Doug Ford's latest handout to his wealthy, well-connected insider friends at the expense of the people of Ontario. Just like the Greenbelt scandal, the selling off of Service Ontario and Ontario Place, the privatization of your healthcare system, Doug Ford isn't being honest with you. In fact, his government is giving $1 billion, $1 billion of your money to big brewers, major grocery chains, and big box American stores just to get beer in the stores 1 year early. It's $1 billion booze boondoggle. Doug Ford has shown time and time again that he's in office to cater to his wealthy, well-connected insider friends at the expense of the people of Ontario. The major grocery chains, who are already making record profits, and big box American stores like Walmart are going to make a killing. And he's using $1 billion of your money, of taxpayer dollars, to do it. The guy who promised yet failed to deliver, buck a beer, is now blowing $1 billion on booze. What could $1 billion do instead? Our healthcare system is in crisis. $1 billion could hire 12,000 more nurses. Our schools are crumbling. $1 billion could hire 12,000 more teachers or ensure that our schools have proper air conditioning so our kids aren't sweating in class. Our roads are gridlocked. $1 billion could deliver all-day two-way GO train service to Niagara. But that's not what matters to Doug Ford. He doesn't care about you waiting 12 hours in an ER or that your kids are struggling to keep up in the classroom. He's not in it for you or your family. He's in it for the wealthy, well-connected few, the corporate interests and their lobbyists who are really running this government. The selling off of Service Ontario, the paving over the Greenbelt, the blowing of $1 billion on booze. Spend more, do less. The common denominator every single time is who benefits, and it's not Ontario families. Doug Ford is failing Ontario families because his entire focus is on rewarding wealthy, well-connected insiders who really run this government, while ordinary people struggle. This is about priorities, and I have a very different approach. Ontario Liberals will grow our economy and improve our public services, and we can ensure reasonable access to alcohol without blowing $1 billion to help Doug Ford's friends and rich friends get richer. This $1 billion booze boondoggle is just the tip of the iceberg. Since Doug Ford won't come clean, we're calling on the Financial Accountability Officer and the Auditor General to reveal exactly how much of your money he's giving away to his wealthy friends. And now John's going to make a few comments as well.
Thank you very much, Bonnie. And I just want to go over the numbers here so that, and you'll find it in your background or so. First, there's the agreement with the beer store, with the big three brewers, which is going to come out to about $225 million. Then there's the rebate of the LCBO fees. It's about $375 million to the beer store and those three large breweries. Then there's the wholesale discount, about 10% for these large chain grocery stores and large convenience store chains. That's going to be about $150 million, and that's a conservative estimate. And then on top of that, there are foregone licensing fees for all those retail outlets, about 8,500 at the end of it. And we estimate that the cost of that will be about $300 million, or foregone, not cost, but the foregone revenue, which they got in Alberta by licensing stores, will be about $300 million. So it's just over $1 billion for the convenience of doing this 1 year early, giving those large corporations the convenience of making money off of us, money off of Ontarians. We're paying these people to make money off us. And all of it to do a year early. There are a million more priorities out there. Ask any Ontarian. No one's been breaking down my door calling for this to happen next week. They are calling for a family doc or help for their child in school. And we'll take your questions.
Thank you. Eventually, like, is your problem the doing it now? Would a Liberal government have done something like this when the Master Framework Agreement expired?
So look, we would work with the system that we inherit, but this is certainly our focus is on investing on people's priorities. As John said, there are 2.2 million people that don't have access to primary care or a family doctor. Our schools are crumbling. We know that there aren't enough special education teachers in the schools. Let's focus on what matters to Ontarians. Investing in healthcare, not privatizing healthcare, investing in our education system. And what about building affordable housing as well? That's where the $1 billion could go, not expediting beer stores at corner stores where only wealthy insiders, well-connected people, lobbyists who are lobbying to the Ford government are all benefiting.
Where do you get the $1 billion? I mean, the LCBO could end up selling a lot more products as the wholesale distributor if a lot of convenience stores and
in fact, Richard, this could be more than $1 billion. Some estimates show it up to $2 billion. And that's why we're asking the FAO, the Financial Accountability Officer, and the Auditor General to dig into these numbers. These numbers could actually be higher. You know, there are some provinces that auctioned off the licenses and received higher fees for doing so. So these are a very conservative estimate of the numbers. John, do you want to?
And the gas stations, should they be paying for this?
Well, people should, they should be paying a licensing fee. They do it in Alberta, for God's sakes. But, let's they charge a licensing fee, right, to have the privilege of being able to sell alcohol. Now, these companies, these large corporations, they're not doing it because they want to create a convenience for us. They're doing it because they want to make money. So we're paying them to make money. And it just doesn't make sense. And, and to your first question, I'm not sure that consumption is going to skyrocket up. As the government says, it's about convenience. It's not about selling more booze.
Do you think this going through quicker? Do you think this has anything to do with the Premier wanting to call or planning to call an early election, Bonnie?
To me, this is just about rewarding his wealthy friends and insiders. Maybe they see a limited time horizon to do so, quite frankly. So let's get it in while they can. They're not focused on the priorities of the people of Ontario. They're focused on rewarding wealthy friends and insiders, Richard.
Bonnie, would you welcome an early election?
Well, we are gearing up, as everyone is. Obviously, signs are pointing to that direction. And clearly, this is another sign. But this is not a sign of an early election. This is a sign that they're using the time that they have remaining to continue to reward wealthy friends and insiders, which is what this government is doing.
Are you ready for an election? Are the Liberals ready? You're just
Look, Richard, this isn't about an election. This is about squandering $1 billion booze boondoggle. It's about not having the right priorities, the priorities of the people of Ontario. People want access to primary care and a family doctor, and people want to know that their teachers are in schools and special education instructors are in schools so that principals don't have to come and fill in and teachers don't have to wear Kevlar to schools. This is about building affordable housing. This is what this is about, priorities of a government, not liberalizing access to alcohol sales 1 year early at the expense, taxpayer expense of $1 billion.
Doesn't the Liberal Party share a lot of the blame for this, signing an anti-competitive 10-year deal with these wealthy insiders, the largest beverage companies in the world, alcoholic beverage companies in the world, 10 years ago, to lock in their antiquated monopoly that should have been done away with years ago?
Well, I think when we were looking at liberalizing or opening up beer and wine sales, it was incremental. So the agreement was signed. The agreement was going to end in a year.
1 year.
1 year. So, liberalizing liquor sales in Ontario or sales of alcohol in Ontario has been an iterative thing over literally decades. So we kind of creep forward on this.
But that deal made billions, presumably hundreds of millions for the owners of the beer store, which are big foreign-owned companies. It also made tons of money for big, giant grocery chains over the past 10 years who had an exclusive right to sell booze.
Well, we did that because that's what Ontarians wanted. They said what they wanted was they wanted some more openness, some more convenience, that we, as have in the past, opened that up iteratively. And the point here is we don't actually need to spend this money right now to do this. Why do we need to spend the money?
A big chunk of your money that you're talking about are these foregone licensing fees.
Yeah.
But wait a minute, did you actually charge licensing fees to the big grocery stores when? Like,
I'd have to go back and take a look at that agreement. Yeah.
the answer is no.
Yeah.
They're not paying licensing
I'd have to
fees
go back and take a look
now,
at it.
are
Yeah.
they?
But certainly this is what some of the other provinces have done, and that's why we're asking the FAO and the AG to dig into these numbers. That's the point of today's press conference, saying these numbers are very conservative. It could inflate from the $1 billion boondoggle to a $2 billion boondoggle. Let's let the authorities look into it.
$2 billion is the entirety of what the LCBO provides to the government in revenue in a year. So are you saying it could actually cost the entirety of the LCBO's revenue?
What I'm saying today is that this is not a priority. No one is asking for more access to alcohol sales. What they're asking for is access to health care, access to better education, not the privatization of medicine and building of affordable housing. Those priorities are lost so that people can access beer at a corner store and in a gas station.
Can I get back to early election for a minute? So, you know, whether this is a hand grenade just designed to cause chaos or actually something that's going to happen, who knows? But what would their strategy be? I mean, would they be trying to get out ahead of RCMP? I don't really see any issues now that warrant a new mandate. So aside from that question, I just want, and what's the lesson for governments that call an early election with no reason?
Well, we know what the lesson has been in the past. We've seen it before. They're typically punished. But I'm more concerned about the shady backroom deals that this government has repeatedly struck, not very secretive, non-transparent. We've seen this with the Greenbelt. We saw it with Ontario Place. We saw it with Service Ontario. Yet again, Walmart benefiting, driving business into Walmart, and now the LCBO. This is a pattern, and this must stop.
On the election, just one other question to follow up on Fergie. Ontario does actually have a fixed election law, so
Right.
So what would it say to people if Premier Ford calls an early election?
Well, we don't know what that mandate would be. I think it would be very disrespectful to the taxpayer. They have a majority government. I can't envision a reason why they would want to call an early election. It's very disrespectful. It's very anti-democratic. Do you want to comment there?
2.2 million Ontarians don't have a family doctor. By 2026, that will climb to 3.3. Right? We know in schools there's not enough support for our kids. It's clear. We know that. The government is only serving itself if it calls an early election. They should be. I wish they had the same sense of urgency for beer and wine sales for family docs or for special education support in schools. They don't have that same sense of urgency for that, do they? So calling an early election, it's so cynical. No wonder people look at governments and politicians and go, oh my gosh. Like, why don't you just take care of the things that are important to me, my family, my healthcare, my education, making sure that I can afford the rent.
You can't trust them.
Are you waiting for the government to come back with some new rules for supervised injection sites
Right.
or consumption treatment and services sites? Where do you stand on that? What should be the rules around them? How many should there be in the problem? Where are you at?
You know, it's an excellent question. I was in Kingston last week and had a tour of the safe injection site there. They call it the Integrated Healthcare Hub, Integrated Care Hub. In fact, my focus is always going to be on prevention, on treatment, and on recovery. And I will say, with respect to the Kingston site, what I observed were some miracles happening and some incredibly compassionate and passionate people. But yet, the site is struggling because the government is withholding the funding for that site. In fact, the city of Kingston had to make the bridge financing while they're waiting for the funding. These are people saving lives. So, you know, our focus will always be on treatment, on prevention, and on recovery, focusing on the prevention first. John, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I think safe injection sites, look, we have to focus on prevention. and treatment. Addictions and mental health, every family's affected by it. They're people's sons and daughters, brothers and sisters. And this, it keeps people alive, right? You can't make them healthy or better if you don't keep them alive. And that's why they are so important.
I'll just add one more thing, if I may. It occurred to me we were having the same discussion at Peel Regional Council when I was the mayor of Mississauga, and I had mothers appeal to me and plead with me that it was the right thing to do, and they felt strongly that if there had been a safe injection site somewhere in Peel, their children would be alive today.
If I'm understanding right, a Liberal government would fund these sites. Would there be a cap like there is today?
We haven't. Our focus, again, prevention, treatment, recovery. We know that they are necessary with respect to the funding. Has to be advanced, as we saw in Kingston. It hasn't been advanced, and once more it was downloaded to the municipality to do the bridge financing, and let's hope the government does the right thing and forward the funding for that site.
On government communications,
Okay.
the chief of staff to the premier told the integrity commissioner that he never uses any kind of private email for government business. Yet we've uncovered a lot of emails in which they share, they have political discussions, but they also share documents that are very clearly, as we've seen them, government-related documents. What do you think should happen here?
Yeah. So the chief of staff to the premier isn't being truthful. What we've seen is government by Gmail. And these Gmails, their Gmail addresses should be made available to the Integrity Commissioner. The deleted emails should be recovered and evaluated, analyzed. They even spoke in code. They had code words that they used. Rather than Greenbelt, they used G, etc. So they were clearly conducting government business on their personal email accounts. And so, of course, they should be made public as well. They should be subject to the same FOI rules, since it's been proven that they're using those emails to conduct government business.
Late last year, Khalid Rashid left the caucus over what he said to the Integrity Commissioner and the inconsistencies. Should the Premier either hold his Chief of Staff accountable or let Khalid Rashid back into the caucus? Because the two seem to be very similar.
I think you're mixing a lot of issues. I think Khalid is being judged for his role in the Greenbelt scandal, in his fact that he mixed up dates and, again, wasn't truthful to the Integrity Commissioner. So, again, this is a lot of secrecy, a lot of lack of transparency, and this is the hallmark of this government. A lack of transparency and secrecy is what this government will become known for. It will become their hallmark. Do you want to comment about this situation with emails and the...
Yeah, no, I think if this is the second time around, if you can't be truthful with the people of Ontario in the top office, or one of the top offices, what are you doing there?
You don't deserve to be there.
What are you doing there?
Do you think he should be fired for this?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think people lose trust and confidence in government. I mean, yeah, I agree, but that's this much of the problem.
That's right.
The rot runs much deeper than that.
But if the Chief of Staff is using Gmail, does that, to the Premier is using Gmail, does that signify that this is a system-wide, government-wide approach to communications, like two sets of means of communication?
I'll just
And
go
is that
quickly.
okay?
The Integrity Commissioner is going to come out, the Information Commissioner is going to come out with a report, and we'll see the details of that report. But from what I've read in different pieces, it's clearly an effort to hide something and not to be open about it and not to have a public record about it because there's something wrong with what it is they're doing.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us today.